we're getting to the session, but first question: who is this person and why are they talking about fandom, etc., etc. So the introduction covered a little bit about what I've done. I have worked in the music industry for a little over 15 years now. In various capacities, label side, streaming service for the longest time, agencies, and now more recently on the distribution side with TuneCore. But before all that, my first identity has always been as a music fan. So I don't remember. I think maybe I was like 12 or 13. And a friend of mine gave me an Abbey Road cassette. Not because I'm that old, but we were just hipster children. And for some reason, we were like, yeah, cassettes are cool. And it really blew my mind because I don't heard anything like that. And therefore, I decided to be a criminal and download more music illegally instead of buying it, as we all have done. And there used to be this platform called LimeWire back then. And if you guys remember it, or if you don't, what you download and what you get are not necessarily the same things. Sometimes it leads to very problematic downloads. But in my case, what happened was I was trying to download another album or a song from the Beatles, but instead I landed on Metallica, Enter Sandman. And again, it blew my mind. And I'm like, what the hell? What is this sound, right? Um, and I met all of my closest friends because of metal. And I think that's why the genre of music is so important to me. I met my partner because of metal, right? Actually, I'm in this job because of metal, because that's when I realized maybe I want to do something in the music industry. So it's not that fandom interests me, it has literally given me everything in my life. And, this is not like a unique story, right? Like, if any of you are fans of any artist, any genre of music, you know what I'm saying. Like, you have some sort of a personal connection where you feel like it really, really like created who you are and defined you as a person, right? And we all have that shared experience. What I can, however, do is take my experience on the business side, but also me as a fan, and connect fan psychology to music marketing. And that's what we're going to try and do in this session. So let's ask a simple question. How is it that some artists have a cult like following? They are not necessarily the only artist in that genre. They're also not necessarily the first artist in that sound. Like, for example, Ed Sheeran, right? He's signed to a major label right now. He just did like a huge tour of India. He's come to India multiple times. Long, long ago, he actually started on TuneCore. And there are many singer-songwriters, right? Like, his sound is not the only pop sound that there is, but there's a reason why he sort of broke out the way he did, right? Taylor Swift, right? This year, the Grammys had like 4 out of 4 all women artists on the pop category, and surprisingly, after a long while, right? And obviously, Taylor was one of them. And while the Grammy actually went to Sabrina Carpenter, we know how iconic Taylor is and her contribution to the music industry. Just last year, she was in Singapore. She had 6 shows. Those 6 shows brought in $375 million into the Singapore economy, which is 0.2% of the entire GDP, right? And that all happened in a week. So why is it that she is able to do this? But there are many, many other artists who might even have a very similar sound to her, right? It's also a very similar trend that you see in India. Like, for example, uh, everyone knows Anuj Jain. He was actually at Rise last year. Not the first singer-songwriter in the country. I'm sure there are many singer-songwriters sitting right here, right? What is it about him that he broke out the way he did? And at TuneCore, we have the opportunity to work with a lot of artists across the globe, right? All the way from India to Indonesia to the US, South Africa. And we see a very similar trend that it's not necessarily the most unique sound that is breaking through into the mainstream, and these artists have cult like fan followings, right? And what is it that these guys have in common? And the truth is, success can look very different for different people, but data looks the same for everyone. And we actually recently launched a new trends and analytics dashboard, and it gives us this opportunity to see an artist's trajectory over a period of time across all streaming services. So I have obviously redacted the names and the exact stream count, but there are typically 3 graphs that you will ever see in any artist anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter the genre, it doesn't matter the locality. This is one example of someone who had a very big viral hit. Like, obviously, they did really well over here. The trend kind of died down. They put out a release a little later, went up a little bit. They hit a new baseline after the second release, but this is someone who had a big hit, But then these fans didn't stay back, right? This is someone who had a viral hit. So they obviously had a great trajectory, but they're able to maintain their fans after that. They had another, so it hits a new peak. They put out another release, which is the second dot you see over there. So it comes to a new sort of a flat line after that, but it kind of stays over there, right? But again, this is not the most common one because there are very few artists who are going to have a viral hit and then they're going to maintain their fan base. This is the trajectory 95% of artists will have, which is they start at a baseline. It's starting at zero only because the date is there. This person didn't have zero fans in Feb. They had fans before that. So, right, they had a release, they hit a new baseline, started going down a little bit. They had another release, they hit a higher baseline, but it hits a plateau at some point, right? Then they have another release, it goes up a little bit, plateaus a little bit, okay? This tends to be, like I said, the predominant way in which artists are generating fans and keeping them there, right? Across the board, like maybe the ups and downs will differ a little bit, but they always look pretty much the same. You keep hitting a new plateau after you put out a new release or have some kind of an activation, right? So, what you sort of see common over here is really a word that makes me cringe because I hate it. But there isn't a better way to say this. It's actually consistency, right? And I think consistency gets a bad rep because it paints this picture of continuously putting out content, which feels like a job, and it actually is, right? Like it's an actual job. But if you look at the same example of Anujan, there are years in which he puts out only one song. So he's by no means consistent in his releases, right? Consistency is actually consistently engaging with your fans in different ways. It means a new release for someone, it might mean like a tour for someone, it might mean social media content for someone. Consistency is consistently engaging, not necessarily consistently releasing, unless if that is your thing, right? And so the thing is, you cannot overlook the impact of time that all of these artists have had. Over a very long period of time, they are consistently engaged and therefore they are able to build a cult like fan following. The other thing that these guys do a little differently, guys and girls, well, it's actually their marketing, right? It's very unique. And again, marketing is another thing that gets a bad rep because it paints this picture of, oh my God, I have to create a reel, I have to pitch for playlists, I have to do so many things, and it can feel very inundating. But if we can break it down into a framework, it becomes a lot easier. And this is excellent article that everyone should look up that Vogue Business did called How Gen Z Broke the Marketing Funnel. It's a free article, so no paywall. You can go check it out. And it has a very interesting hypothesis, which is very true. This is how the traditional marketing funnel used to look like, right? So you put out a song, you become aware of it in one place, you think about listening to this artist in another place, maybe because a friend told you, then you actually listen to them, and then maybe after that you engage with them by going to a show or like buying merchandise. This is how it used to look, but this is kind of dead, so don't do it. Uh, what it looks more like right now is a loop where, because if you think about it, we don't have different marketplaces anymore. Everything is the phone, right? We are discovering at the same time, we're engaging at the same time, and we're also deciding at the same time. And this is the framework that they have provided in that article, which is something that can easily lend to musicians. In music, it looks a little bit like this: discover, connect, and convert. I made this up, by the way, it uses their framework. And let's look at a few things that artists can be doing at each of these stages and what each of these stages are meant to do, right? So, the discover phase. This is actually where you don't talk about your music at all, okay? In fact, never start by talking about your music. No one wants to be sold to. Uh, the discover phase is where you want to attract your potential audience to you with something that's a common ground. It could be an interest, it could be something that you can bond over, right? We had an artist performing at Chinko Showcase yesterday, Mohawk. We actually discovered him because he used to do this content series called Rose Covers. So if you love music, if you like popular music, pop music, this would turn up, right? And then eventually we ended up discovering, oh, wait, this person is a rapper. They also have original music. But the first point of discovering was a common interest. For example, also Russ, like he really likes talking about workouts, right? Or like sports. And these are things that people can bond over, right? And when you think about even playlisting, before you think about an artist playlist or, your top, indie India playlist, etc., the first point of discovery might actually be better if it happens when a fan is doing an activity that they love and they use music as its background score. or it could even be a mood, right? So now overlook these kind of playlists in your pitching process. Also, like, user generated playlists, right? That's where discovery happens. It's not about who you are right now, it's about where can your music be and be discovered. The connect phase, as the name kind of suggests, this is where you want to actually give your fans or potential fans a reason to connect with you, a reason to want to actually follow you, right? So here is where your storytelling starts coming in. So a lot of press opportunities, those are opportunities for you to talk about why you do what you do. Even like you curating your own playlist, right? Giving people a sense of what's the music you are into. If others are into the same music, they'll naturally gravitate towards you. Even like showcases, live performances, they have discovered you. You have them captivated. Use it to tell your story and why you do what you do. That gives people a reason to stay with you, right? And you're still not talking about your music, by the way. You're just talking about why you're in music. And this is the final phase where you actually can start talking about, hey, I have an album or I have a single or whatever it might be. After you have had all of these other touch points is when you can tell someone, hey, by the way, you seem to like this kind of music, you seem to be into this kind of activities, and by the way, I make music for people like us. Whether it's your music video snippets or even if it's just a simple, visual with music, your own artist playlist, this is basically the last stage of the equation. So discovery helps people to get attracted to you, connect, builds emotional investment, and convert is where you create fans. And the reason why that framework is great is because it aligns exactly with how platforms like Spotify define fans. This is the entire spectrum of fans that Spotify has. And you're literally looking from discover, connect to convert. And it's also a very similar framework that we use at TuneCore when we built out a program called the TuneCore Accelerator, which helps artists get into algorithmic playlists and discovery mode, etc. When you have some kind of marketing happening in each of these three phases, what ends up happening is these kind of programs start supplementing your discovery. So then you create a set of fans who bring in more fans and they bring in more fans, and it's really like a snowball effect, right? And quick snapshot of what we just discussed. What you want to be aiming for is to have a little bit of something in each of these buckets when you're thinking about your marketing strategies so that your marketing works for you while you sleep. Artists can create music when they create it, but fans are going to discover you in their own time. So you just want to make sure that you're creating those assets, you're creating those points of discovery whenever they decide that they're looking for music. So these artists, they have this great loop, marketing loop, right? So that is something that helps them build this cult-like fan following. And another shocking news: fandom is about fans, and this is a great um, framework. Okay, this is something called social identity theory that Tashful and Turner put together, and they really looked at what is the motivation for people to engage in any kind of activities that leads to a social identity. Fandom really falls under your personal as well as your social identity, but more so towards social identity, especially when it goes into genres and particular fandoms. Ultimately, what human beings want is to feel wanted. And self esteem is a big driver for all of the things that we do and why we do them. And when you think about your fans, it's a bit counterintuitive. They become your fans actually not for you, but for themselves, right? Because they were dealing with something, there was an emotion that they felt and you felt, and they bonded with you in that moment. So, fandom is actually about the fan. And all of these artists really, really know how to make fans feel good about themselves. And, last but not the least, um, they make them feel, right? And I think Maya Angelou said it the best way possible that you're going to forget what people said, but you're always going to remember how they made you feel. And all great art is meant to make you feel. Like, you don't have to be an artistry major to look at a Sistine Chapel and feel both small, insignificant, but also part of something much bigger, right? Uh, you don't actually have to be from New York when the chorus hits in Empire State of Mind to feel something because everybody has their own New York, right? Uh, Titanic makes you feel lots of things through the movie, mostly angry towards the end because there clearly was space. Okay, please, she had to move that bag. There were these many opportunities, but no, no, we had to let the cute guy die. But yeah, so we spoke about a whole bunch of things of what these artists who seem to have these cult like fan followings have in common. But the question remains, so how can you implement that in what you do? So I think the lessons are pretty simple, right? You want to do three things. First is just be kind to yourselves. Things take time, okay? And you can't underestimate the impact that time is going to have in your career. Second thing is when it comes to marketing, don't get stressed out by it. Think about creating a loop that will work when you sleep. By that I mean creating content that is discovered over and over again by people. So you don't have to keep doing this all the time. Think about it in that sense. It'll be a lot more easier, right? And gotta be fan centric, yeah? More so than ever. Luminate puts out this study every year. And one of the things that the industry always keeps talking about is the number of songs that will never get streamed. Okay. But I want to focus on the number of songs that will get streamed. Yes, there are 202 million tracks that went out last year, and only 26.7 million of those were actually streamed by fans. The music industry's real problem is not that there is too much content. The music industry's problem is we are not connecting the artists and the content to the right people. The population of Earth is definitely more than 202 million. Spotify alone has more than 202 million subscribers. People are there, bro. So it is possible. But that is actually what the industry is right now actually working on. How do we bridge the gap between potential fans and artists? And a lot of work is being done on the tech side, whether it's TuneCore Accelerator, whether it's Spotify Discover Mode. That's what the industry is focusing on. What you as an artist can do at the same time is you can be fan focused as well. Think about the fan when you're creating your music, when you're putting it out there. Just as companies need to be artist centric, artists need to be fan centric. And that's my time, guys. Thank you so much.